Zenari lived alone on the 17th floor of Tower 9, one of the cleaner buildings in Sector Kilo 3. It was quiet, modern, and most important, far away from her nosy relatives. She liked peace, order, and schedules. But peace came with a price. Rent had doubled, food credits were thin, and her research job barely paid enough. So she made a choice she never thought she would. She posted a roommate ad: private room, shared kitchen, 1 bathroom, female aliens only. She typed quickly into the galactic board. Then, after reading it twice, she hit post and sighed. That should do it, she thought. No nonsense, no surprises. The next 2 days, no one responded. That was fine with her. Until the 3rd day came, and there was a message blinking on her com screen. Hello, I saw your ad. I'm available to move in immediately. Human male. Name, Jace Carter. Zenari. Blinked twice, thinking it was a joke. A human, applying for her space. That couldn't be right. She checked the rules, to her surprise. Ever since Earth joined the Intergalactic Alliance, humans were now allowed to live in mixed species housing even in Sector Kilo 3. She sat back, tail twitching, annoyed, confused, and a little curious. Why would a human want to live in a sector filled with aliens who barely tolerated their kind? She opened his profile. No criminal record, ex-military, clean background, decent education, and a picture. He was smiling, relaxed, short hair and light stubble on his jaw. He didn't look dangerous, but something about his eyes made her pause. They weren't smiling like the rest of his face. Still, the rent was overdue. She messaged back. Interview today, 4th cycle. Don't be late. When 4th cycle came, she paced the room nervously. Her tail flicked side to side. She wore her formal robe, nothing too inviting, just enough to look professional. Then came the knock. Zenari opened the door slowly. There he was, Jace Carter, standing with a backpack slung over one shoulder. And that same half-smile. Hi, he said simply. I brought my own pillow. Zenari didn't smile. You're early, she said. I like to be early, he replied. Stepping inside before she could invite him, his boots made soft thuds. On her clean floor, she watched him scan the room like a soldier checking a battlefield. This is the common area, she said, trying to sound cold and bored. She wanted him to leave on his own. He nodded. Looks nice, smells like mint, and ... Something metallic. That's me, she said flatly. I'm half for Larry. He nodded again. Cool, cool. She thought, no human has ever called me that. She showed him the bathroom, kitchen, and the spare room. All the while, he made little comments: nice view, clean walls, solid construction. He wasn't fake. But he wasn't nervous either. It was like nothing impressed or scared him. Finally, she turned to him. Why do you want to live here? Because it's safe, he said, meeting her eyes. And I need safe right now. Something in his voice changed when he said that. It was lower, heavier, like a shadow passed over him. Before she could ask more, her lights flickered, just for a second, then came back. Her AI security chimed. Energy spike detected. Level 1, Zenari frowned. That's never happened before. Jace tilted his head. Must be old wiring. No, she said, stepping back. This tower is new, her symbiotic pet. A small floating orb suddenly zipped into her robe and hid. That had never happened either. Zenari narrowed her eyes, staring at the human standing calmly in her room. Who was this man? I'll take the room, he said softly, if you'll have me. Something inside her said no. Every warning light in her mind told her to close the door, delete the ad, and move on. But instead, she heard herself say, 1 week trial, Jace. Smiled again. 1 week's all I need. As he walked into his new room and dropped his bag, Zenari stood frozen. Her AI pinged again, quietly this time. Warning, Unknown energy signature detected source, new resident. Xenori didn't move, didn't blink. A chill crawled up her spine. What had she just let into her home, and why? Deep down, was she not afraid, but curious? The next morning, Xenori woke to the sound of human humming. It was coming from the kitchen, soft, steady, oddly calming. She walked out of her room quietly, her feet making no sound on the cold floor. Jace was cooking, using her stove like it was his own. She narrowed her eyes. Did I give you permission to touch that? He didn't even flinch. You were asleep, and I thought maybe I could make breakfast. He looked over his shoulder and smiled. You eat eggs. Her eyes scanned the counter-real protein, fresh herbs, and a strange blue spice she didn't remember buying. You brought food. Traded some old parts at the market, he said casually. Figured I'd contribute. Xenori didn't know what to say. Most aliens didn't cook, and definitely not like this. But the smell was warm. Her stomach growled against her will. They sat in silence while eating. The only sound was the clink of forks on plates. She kept glancing at him, wondering again who this man really was. He moved like a soldier, but acted like a traveler. Polite, calm, unreadable. Later that evening, Xenori returned from the research center with more questions than answers. Her coworkers had been acting strange. 2 of them avoided eye contact, and one of them whispered, "Is it true?" A human, in. When she asked what he meant, he turned away and didn't speak again. She stormed out early, irritated. Back at home, she found Jace sitting on the floor in the living room. He was fixing a broken circuit from her cleaning bot. Tools spread neatly. In a circle around him, "You're good with tech," she said, watching him closely. He didn't look up. "Comes with a job." "What job?" she asked, stepping closer. "What exactly do you do, Jace?" He smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "I used to repair things," he said. "Now I just try to stay out of trouble." Xenori sat down across from him, arms crossed. "That's not an answer." He looked up at her, and for the first time his face changed. Something in him hardened, a shadow behind his eyes. "I've seen things," he said softly. "Things I can't forget." Her voice lowered. "Like what?" He picked up the bot and turned it on. It buzzed back to life and floated gently toward the wall. "Nothing I want to bring into your world," he said. Standing up and walking past her, Xenori sat still for a long time after he left the room. That night, she accessed the building's security feed, curious, uneasy. She rewound the footage from when she was at work, at exactly second cycle. 2 figures appeared outside her door. Both wore dark cloaks, and one of them scanned the lock panel, but then Jace appeared on the screen. Standing just inside the door, perfectly still, when the cloaked figures looked up, Jace stared directly at the camera. The feed glitched. For 1 second, the image turned black. When it returned, the figures were gone. Xenori leaned back in her chair, skin cold. He had known even before the lock was touched. How? She walked quietly to his door and stood there, listening. No sound, no movement. She lifted her hand, but didn't knock. Just as she turned to leave, his voice came through the door, calm, quiet, "Can't sleep either." Xenori froze, her throat dry. "I was just checking the feed." There was silence for a beat. Then he said, "Don't trust the cameras. They lie more than people." She backed away slowly, not saying another word. That night, her dreams were filled with static whispers and a single image. Jace, standing in the middle of fire, not burning, just watching her, and somehow he was smiling. The next day felt different. The sky outside was gray, covered with thick clouds. Even the air in the tower felt heavier, like it was holding its breath. Xenori tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to Jace. His words echoed in her head, "Don't trust the cameras." Why would he say that? And what exactly did he mean by things I can't forget? She returned home early and found the lights already on. Jace was in the living room again, this time building something strange. A circular object with wires sticking out, glowing faintly blue. "What is that?" she asked, walking slowly toward him. "A motion buffer," he said without looking up. "It'll block scanning pulses from orbit." She stopped, stunned. "Why would we need that?" He looked up at her, eyes calm. "Because someone's looking for you." Xenari's heart skipped. "I'm not that important," she said quickly. Too quickly, Jace tilted his head slightly. "You were marked the moment you let me in." She felt the room grow colder. "Explain," she said, voice low. He stood and dusted off his hands. "There are people, powerful ones, who don't want humans and aliens living together. Not really. They monitor every new interaction." He added, "especially ones that happen by mistake." Xenari crossed her arms, trying to stay calm. "It wasn't a mistake. I needed a roommate." Jay stepped closer, voice softer now. "And I needed a place to hide." She flinched slightly, but didn't move. "From who?" He looked at her for a long moment, then simply said, "The ones who started the hybrid program." Xenari felt her legs go weak. The hybrid program was a rumor illegal experiments to mix human DNA with alien tech her old professor once mentioned. It then disappeared the next week. "You're lying," she whispered. But her voice didn't sound sure. "I wish I was," Jay said. Then handed her a small chip. "Here, see for yourself." She took it with shaky hands, plugged it into the wall port, and watched as a dozen files popped up. Images of labs, alien children with strange features, humans with glowing veins, and, in the middle of it, all data marked with her own species name, Ralari. Her breath caught. Some of the files were dated only 2 weeks ago. One even showed her building from a satellite view. Her unit was marked in red. "Why me?" she asked, tears burning in her eyes. "I'm just a researcher." Jace's face softened. "That's why, Xenari. You're smart, clean record, and no close ties. The perfect target." She stepped back from the screen, shaking her head. This can't be real, but deep inside, something told her it was. She had always felt different. Her blood reacted strangely to machines. Her skin shimmered under certain lights. Things she never told anyone, not even her mother. Now it made sense. Too much sense. Suddenly, her building AI flickered to life. Voice sounding off, distorted, unauthorized data access detected. "Please report to Sector Authority." Jace's face hardened. "We have to go. Now." She didn't move. Her body frozen in shock. Then he grabbed her hand, firm but not rough, and said in a tone that made her legs move, "Xenari, they're coming." They rushed down the hallway. Past blinking lights and flickering doors, the elevator was locked. So they ran down the stairs, 17 floors without stopping. By the time they reached the underground level, alarms were ringing across the tower. Jace led her to a maintenance hatch hidden behind a storage crate. He opened it with a strange tool that wasn't standard issue. "Where did you get that?" she asked, panting. He gave her a small grin. "Earth isn't as far behind as they think." They slipped into the dark tunnel, and the hatch sealed behind them. Xenari turned one last time and looked back toward the home she no longer had. She had no idea what waited ahead. But one thing was now clear. Jace Carter wasn't just a human roommate. He was her only chance to survive. The tunnel was cold and narrow. Pipes ran along the walls. The air smelled like rust and old steam. Xenari walked behind Jace, her steps slow, heart still racing. Her mind was spinning with questions. Who was really hunting her? And why did Jace seem like he had been preparing for this moment all along? After what felt like hours, they reached a metal door, sealed shut with an old control pad beside it. Jace pulled out a round device, placed it against the pad, and pressed a button. A soft hum filled the air. Then the door opened with a hiss. Inside was a small, hidden room, dark walls, broken monitors, and a dusty table. Jace lit a portable lamp and sat down. He'd been here before. "You've used this place before," Xenari said, more as a statement than a question. Jace nodded slowly. "Once, a long time ago." He pointed to a small corner. "You can sit there. I'll explain everything." Xenari sat without a word, her eyes fixed on him. Jace took a deep breath. "I wasn't just a soldier," he began. "I was part of a covert mission, something no one's supposed to know." Xenari leaned forward. "What mission?" "A rescue mission," he replied, "but not for people, for data." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small cube. Glowing faintly blue, this holds evidence of illegal hybrid testing. All across the Alliance, Xenari's eyes widened, including on R'hllari. He nodded. "Especially on R'hllari. Your DNA reacts to energy in a way no other species does. That's why your skin glows in blue light, why machines respond to you." She looked down at her hands, her breath caught in her throat. "My parents told me it was a rare trait," she whispered. Jace shook his head. "They lied to protect you." She looked up sharply. "How do you know all this?" Jace didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to one of the broken monitors, pulled a panel off the wall, and revealed a hidden compartment. Inside was a hollow photo, dusty and cracked. He handed it to her. Xenari gasped. In the picture stood a younger version of Jace alongside. A R'hllari woman who looked almost exactly like her. Same eyes, same hair color, same birthmark under the left eye. "That's my aunt," she whispered, "but she died in a lab fire 10 years ago." "No," Jace said softly. "She didn't die in a fire. She saved me from that lab and helped me escape." Xenari stared at him in silence. "She disappeared after that," Jace continued. "But before she did, she told me something important, that if the project ever restarted, I should find you." Xenari felt her chest tighten. Her voice a whisper. "Why me?" "Because you're the key," he said. "You have something inside you that the scientists couldn't recreate. A perfect, natural hybrid R'hllari blood that connects with technology, but untouched by human labs." She stood slowly, shaking her head. "This is too much." "I know," Jace said, standing too, "but we don't have time to slow down." Suddenly, the hidden room lights flickered red. A soft alarm buzzed through the floor. "They found us," Jace said. Grabbing the cube and pulling her toward the back exit, he pressed a code into a wall panel, and a secret path opened behind a stack of crates. "Where are we going now?" Xenari asked, panic in her voice. "To the only person who can protect you." Jace replied, "An ex-agent who's been hiding even longer than I have." As they disappeared into the next tunnel, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Xenari didn't dare look back. Her world had been simple just 3 days ago. Now she was running through the dark, carrying secrets powerful enough to shake the galaxy, and the only person she trusted was a human she barely knew. The tunnel narrowed until they had to crawl. Xenari's hands were scraped and sore. Her breathing heavy, behind them, she could still hear the distant hum of scanner drones. They were getting closer. Jace moved fast but silent, like he had done. This before, finally, he pushed open a hatch above them, and they climbed up into an old storage shed. The air was thick with dust and oil, outside, through a cracked window. They saw the lower districts of Sector Kilo 3, loud, crowded, and forgotten by the government. "This place is off-grid," Jace whispered. "No cameras, no patrols, just noise." Xenari stared at the city below, lights blinking through fog and smoke. She had never been in this part of the city. She never needed to, until now. Jace led her through the alleys. Weaving between broken stalls and flickering signs, people stared. Some recognized her species and turned away quickly, Others stared longer, especially at Jace. He moved confidently, hand always near his side. Xenari stayed close, her robe pulled tight. They stopped at a door that looked like part of an old scrapyard. Jace knocked 3 times, waited, then knocked twice again. A long silence followed. Then a voice crackled from behind the door. "You're late, human," Jace smiled. "Still alive, aren't I?" The door opened with a groan, and a tall figure stood inside. He wasn't human, nor any common species Xenari knew. His skin was dull gray, with glowing symbols running along his arms. One eye was mechanical, clicking softly as it focused on her. "You brought a R'hllari," the man said sharply. "You know what that means? She's the one." Jace replied, "The real one." The man stared at Xenari for a long time. Kay then stepped aside. "Get in, before someone sees you." Inside was a mix of tech and trash's scattered wires, half-built machines, old weapons, and thick data cables. Running across the walls, Xenari looked around in disbelief. "Who are you?" The man didn't smile. "Name's Rek, used to be something important. Now I fix garbage and hide ghosts." "Ghosts?" she asked. Rek pointed at Jace, him, and now you. They sat around a round table made from a ship engine part. Jace pulled out the glowing cube and set it down. "Rex, I scanned it, and the machine clicked." "Where did you get this?" "Recovered." "From the outer labs," Jace answered, "encrypted by someone you knew." Rek looked at Xenari again. "Your aunt?" Xenari nodded slowly. She's dead, isn't she?" Rek didn't answer right away. He reached under the table, pulled out a tablet, and tapped something. A holly-midge appeared, her aunt, alive, speaking into a recorder. "If you're seeing this, it means I failed," her voice said, trembling. "But if Xenari is alive, protect her. She is the last pure code, the only key left." The message cut off. Xenari sat back, hands shaking. Her whole life suddenly felt like a lie. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "What key?" Rek leaned forward. "Your DNA holds a pattern, a natural encryption. Something the labs couldn't make on their own. They were trying to build it, copy it, but only you have the original." "What does it unlock?" she asked. "Barely able to speak, an old defense system," Rek said, "buried deep in Alliance space. From the first war, with it, you could control energy fields, weapons, even ships," Jace added, "or destroy them." Silence filled the room. Suddenly, Rek's mechanical eye blinked red. "We've got movement drones above the building." Jace stood immediately. "How fast can we get out?" Rek pointed to a door in the floor. "Back tunnel leads to the old tram lines." Xenari moved with them, but paused one last time and looked at the holla of her aunt. A single word echoed in her head. Kishi wasn't just a researcher. She was a living weaponor, a doorway to one as they dropped into the dark tunnel below. She whispered. "I didn't ask for any of this," Jace, walking ahead, replied without turning. "None of us did." The tram tunnel was dark and silent. Dust filled the air, and each step echoed far into the black. Xenari followed behind Jace and Rek, her heart heavy. She tried not to think about what she had just learned, but the word key kept repeating. In her mind, she had always thought she was just normal, just another alien trying to live. But now, everything had changed. Rek led them through a broken gate, deeper into the abandoned tracks. Glowing fungi covered the walls, giving them just enough light to see. Xenari watched Jace closely. Even in the darkness, he moved like someone trained for war. "How long do we stay underground?" she asked, her voice tired. "Not long." Rek replied, "We're heading to the old Nexus." Xenari blinked. "That place is just a myth." "No," Jace said without looking back. "It's real. And it's the last place they won't think." To look, they reached an old station, its roof cracked, water dripping from above. Jace and Rek moved quickly. setting up a small camp under the platform. Xenari sat beside a rusted beam, hugging her knees. For the first time since it all started. She felt truly scared. Jace walked over and sat beside her. Not saying anything at first. Then he pulled something from his bag of folded blanket. He placed it around her shoulders. "You're shaking," he said gently. Xenari looked at him. "Of course I am. My life is falling apart. I'm being hunted. And now I find out I'm special. Being special is never easy," Jace replied. "Trust me." She studied his face. Trying to read him, "Why did you really come to my apartment?" He was quiet for a moment, then answered, "Because I was told to find the final carrier. I didn't know it would be you." Xenari frowned. "Told by who?" Sighed. "A man who died before I got there, but he left coordinates, a name, and a warning." "What warning?" He looked her in the eyes, serious now, "that if they find you, they won't kill you. They'll use you, turn you into a tool, and once they get what they want, they'll erase you." Xenari's stomach twisted. She had heard of dark projects before, but never imagined being part of one suddenly. Rek called out from the other side of the station, "You both need to see this." They stood and hurried to him. Rek pointed to a screen he had pulled from an old machine, now glowing with stolen power. On the display was a news broadcast, one that made Xenari's blood freeze. The fugitive known as Jace Carter and an unidentified Relari female are wanted for crimes against the Alliance, suspected of terrorism, biodata theft, and lab destruction. All citizens are to report sightings immediately. A clear image of Xenari appeared on the screen, her ID photo from her research center. She stepped back, heart pounding. "They framed us." Jace's jaw tightened. "That's how they work." Rek turned off the screen. "There's no going back now. You're enemies of the Alliance." Xenari looked at both of them, panic rising in her chest. "I didn't do anything wrong, but they think you did," Jace said, "and that's enough." Rek began packing quickly. "We leave in 10 minutes. Xenari didn't move, her mind frozen, all her life. She had followed rules, stayed quiet, never caused trouble, and now she was a criminal to the whole galaxy. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said, his voice calm. "But right now, we have to keep moving." She looked at him, eyes wide, voice shaking. "What if I can't do this?" "You can," he said firmly, "because you're not alone." And for the first time since it all began, she believed him. The tram shook as it powered through the tunnel. It was an old line, long abandoned, running on backup energy Jace and Rek had forced online. Xenari stood near the window, watching flashes of light streak past. Every second took them deeper, into forgotten zones closer to the place Jace called the Old Nexus. "Almost there," Rek said, checking a small device in his hand. "This route was sealed 20 years ago." Xenari didn't reply. Her thoughts were full, heavy, spinning with fear and questions, but also something else, strength she didn't know she had. Somewhere along this journey, she had changed. The tram slowed, screeching against rusted tracks. Then, with a loud hiss, it stopped in front of a sealed door. Jace walked up and placed the cube into a slot on the wall. Lights flickered, then glowed bright. The door opened slowly, revealing a massive chamber, filled with tall machines and forgotten technology. It looked like a graveyard for ships and weapons. "This is it," Jace whispered. The Nexus. Xenari stepped inside, the floor lighting up beneath her feet. As she walked, the walls hummed with energy. Rek stared in awe. "She's activating it." Xenari didn't know how or why, but the machines seemed to recognize her. They responded to her presence, welcoming her like an old friend. One by one, displays lit up, revealing ancient files, defense logs, and a symbol she didn't recognize. At the center of the room was a chair surrounded by glowing pillars. Jace looked at her. "That's the core. You're the only one who can connect with it." She hesitated. What happens? If I sit? Rex stepped forward. The system will bond with your DNA, make you part of it. You'll control what it protects, soar, what it destroys. Xenari walked toward the chair slowly. She could feel the energy around her, soft and alive, like a heartbeat. She sat down, and immediately the pillars lit up, scanning her body. A voice echoed through the chamber. Confirmed. Primary user identified. Rolari code matched. Command access granted. She gasped as memories not her own flashed through her mind. Images of war, peace treaties, experiments, and her aunt standing in this very room. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't break. She looked at Jace, who stood still, waiting. Then at Rek, who nodded once. Xenari spoke clearly. Her voice calm but powerful. Lock the system. Erase all remote access. Protect this data from the Alliance. The machine responded immediately. Confirmed. Access sealed. Nexus secured. Lights across the chamber turned blue. The room went silent. Waiting, she stood slowly. Her body shaking, but her spirit steady. It's done, she said. Jace smiled. Not with victory, but with quiet relief. You saved more than yourself today. Rek crossed his arms. Now what? Xenari looked at them both. We disappear, she said. No more running, just gone. They'll look for us, but they won't find us. Jace nodded. I know a few quiet planets. Xenari walked back toward him, her face softer. Now, as they boarded the tram again, she paused beside Jace. I never imagined my life turning out like this. He smiled at her. Me neither. But you posted the ad. She laughed quietly. The sound strange, but real. I was expecting a quiet alien girl who cleaned after herself. And you got a human disaster? He joked. She looked at him for a long moment, then said something. She never thought she would. You can stay, Jace, he blinked, surprised. Stay. With me, she said simply. Wherever I go, he smiled slowly. Yeah. I'd like that. The tram disappeared into the dark, leaving behind the old world ahead of them, silence, stars, and maybe finally a little peace.